Hello, everybody, and welcome to Draft Outlook. I am Joseph Potter, joined today by Trumaine Jenkins and Chris Ransom. We are going live on Google Hangouts. Hopefully, this kills any audio issues we've been having. I will get back to all of trying to figure out our main setup later because it is an absolute disaster on that end at the moment. But today we have a great show for you. We have the Oakland Raiders and we have the New York Giants. And we have Raiders fan Trumaine Jenkins. TJ has been all over this for a little while. Then we have the New York Giants after that. Can Eli give it one more go? So, starting off, Oakland. They've lost some pieces. They lost their both right tackles. They didn't address the linebacker position, which was an area of great need in the draft. They didn't address the backup quarterback position, which was, let's face it, absolutely abominable after Carr went down. So we're going to start off because I know I haven't had a chance to look at all the stats, and I know Chris is always looking at stats. So, Chris, what is it with Oakland and their stats that really stand out?
I don't think it's really as much about the stats as it is about Oakland just simply executing, because you look at what the Oakland Raiders have, and they brought in a few players through free agency that we did not acknowledge on Sunday's podcast when breaking down the divisions. One of those players was Jelani Jenkins at right outside linebacker for the Miami Dolphins. This was not a signing that was talked about by a lot of the bloggers and people in the media, so it's a signing that sort of got underlooked because Jelani Jenkins can be an effective starter when he's healthy. So he's probably going to play the weak side linebacker. I'd imagine him playing that role next to Bruce Irvin. And the backup quarterback position, the Raiders actually did do something there. Wasn't something very good, but they did take some form of action by replacing Matt McGloin with E.J. Manuel. Not saying it's going to work out. Both Manuel and Connor Cook are absolute immense downgrades from Derek Carr. There's no need to sugarcoat that. But they did bring in E.J. Manuel to compete with Connor Cook. And what's going to be interesting here is Oakland's got 3 two-down linebackers. Corey James, the guy they took from Colorado State. Ben Heaney, the guy they took from Kansas in 2015. And Markel Lee, the guy they took from Wake Forest. All of these guys are two-down linebackers, and they're fighting for that middle linebacker job. The problem is they don't have a 3-down linebacker, and I think that's going to make Oakland suspect. There's no depth if Irvin or Jelani Jenkins goes down, so that's another issue. One interesting storyline about the Raiders really quickly is Breon Borders, the undrafted cornerback out of Duke, who I had a 4th-round grade on, is actually beating out both Garyon Connolly and Sean Smith for the nickel cornerback job in Oakland. Pretty cool underdog story there that we also ignored on yesterday's podcast. So after doing a lot of research on the Raiders before we posted their season preview this morning, there were a lot of things we underlooked when it came to the Oakland Raiders for the podcast. And David Sharp is getting first-team reps as their 4th-round draft pick with Donald Penn. So the reason they released Howard is because Donald Penn's on a holdout, and Sharp is getting the first-team reps at left tackle. I don't trust Marshall Newhouse as the starting right tackle. I would rather put David Sharp in at right tackle next to Donald Penn if I could, but that's going to be a decision that's on Oakland at the end of the day. And if they start Marshall Newhouse, expect Carr to take a few more hits this year. But overall, you got a lot of weapons. You've got Marshawn Lynch, Jared Cook Jr., Cooper Crabtree. You've got a lot of weapons, and I'm sure TJ's willing to break down the rest of this for us with Mario Edwards Jr. coming back as well.
Head it up, TJ.
Mario Edwards Jr.'s, man. Really good end. Oakland looks like a team that actually can make the playoffs actually can go head to head with the Patriots. Let's think they get Marshawn Lynch. If Derek Carr stays healthy and the receiver corps becomes better than what it was last year, which I think it will because of the playmaking of Derek Carr and what he can do in that offensive set. He can scramble, he can stay in the pocket and throw. He's accurate. I wish he was a little more accurate with a lot of his throws, but sadly not. That comes over time. But Oakland has a better line on offense. They has a better line on defense. They have pieces where they're missing a linebacker, but I don't think it's a bad thing, let alone not a good thing. I wish they still had their linebacker core they had last year, but they don't. This year there will be a playoff contender team. This year they have a chance to actually be a championship team if everything falls in order and falls right.
That's true, TJ. And the corner and the linebacker they lost to free agency, which is Perry Riley. He's still on the market. Perry Riley, the linebacker, the middle linebacker who was a good starter for them, he's still a free agent, Joey. So they could technically bring him back at a discount deal if they wanted to.
And another thing that I got with Oakland is I wish they would have never took EJ Manuel. I wish they would have took Colin Kaepernick. A lot of reasons why. Colin can give you more. Colin's a little more faster on his feet. And it wouldn't be out of the system for Colin. Just a little more strong arm, less accuracy. We can tell that. But I think Colin Kaepernick would be that second piece that if David Carr does get hurt, he can still run the offense efficiently enough to where they can, get over a couple games.
And I was promoting this a little bit and I found out something that has completely taken my mind off everything. And that is, TJ, you had just completely destroyed Draft Evolution with your facial hair. I just promoted it, and your face is the big thing on the marquee here. So you're a celebrity. Congratulations. Yeah. Now, the thing, however, that I'm looking at here with this is, if you look at Oakland is going to go as far as not Marshawn Lynch, but it's going to go as far as Carr. I'll be nice. I always get the two Carr brothers mixed up because I was a big fan of David Carr. Yeah. But the thing is, Derek Carr is going to be the one who really gets this thing going. As he goes, the Raiders go. Marshawn Lynch will be a great piece. A lot of what I do, I still do play Madden to keep my skills sharp when it comes to decision making. And one thing I'll do, especially if there are guys that are on the market that I have released or don't want to re-sign, I will wait and I will give them a low ball deal if they're not signed. There's a reason they're not getting signed. And Oakland could definitely do that at right tackle right now. And that would be something that, and a lot of times that's something players learn. Players bet on themselves. And so if he bet on himself, he lost. Now he could potentially go back to Oakland on a sweet deal on that one.
Well, Austin Howard signed with the Baltimore Ravens, so he can't go back there. But what they could do is they could
Howard
get Oscar Cherilus for under $1 million on a low discount deal.
Yeah, he can't. Howard can't. But didn't you say that their backup was still available?
No, Menelik Watson was still available. When I said Perry Riley, the middle linebacker, not the right tackle, but the middle linebacker who started for them last year, Perry Riley, he's still a free agent. That's what I said.
Oh, okay, my bad.
But they could get Goster Cherilus for under $1 million in cap space if they wanted to. He's still a free agent at right tackle.
Yeah, and Cherilus should be a good pickup because right now they need help over there. And that's the one position their offense is lacking at terribly. When it comes to their wide receivers are going to be good. Right now, as long as you have Cooper in there as your number one, he's going to keep getting better. You're going to have a chance to win. You just have to remember, you got to keep Cooper healthy. So I think right now, the two biggest positions, especially on the coaching staff, that we need to look at are the training staff and the linebacker position coaches. Because on defense, those are the two places that we're going to have the most trouble when it comes to the Raiders. If I'm the Raiders, I look at it, that's where we have our issues. We have to get that together.
Well, the good news for the Raiders is their head coach, Jack Del Rio, specializes in linebacker development. Ken Norton Jr., their defensive coordinator, he was a former linebacker himself. And Sal Sunseri is their linebackers coach. So they have three guys who are capable of developing their linebackers, yet their linebacker play sucks. That's the mystery, Joey. That's the $1 million mystery that we can't put our fingers on.
Yeah, and I want to look at this, though. At the same time with their linebackers, remember who they drafted. Obi Melifonwu and Garyon Conley in rounds 1 and 2, 2 and 1 respectively. Conley will probably end up starting. He was cleared of all of his legal issues. So that was a big play, potentially a steal, even at 24, as some people had him as a top 12 talent, top 12, top 15 talent. Melifonwu, he's going to get a chance to start right away. Whether he will or not is anybody's guess at this point. The all season starts Thursday. We'll get to see these guys live play. And a guy who I like, Eddie Vanderdoes. He was drafted, pick 24 on the defensive line. One I like that was drafted, offensive tackle. We don't even know if he'll make the roster, though. So these are guys, those top 4 picks, all are going to have a chance to produce early. Will they step up into that role, though? That's the question. So, TJ, do you think any of those 4 guys, those top 4 picks, do you think they step up?
Joseph, before I answer the question that you want me to answer, I kind of wish that Oakland tried to keep Latavius Murray. And the reason why is because they would have had the same combo setup as Atlanta. Think about it real quick. Atlanta has Dante Freeman and Tevin Coleman, right?
Yes.
Dante Freeman is the power back. He's more power than speed, so he's willing to run into the gaps. Where Tevin Coleman is speed. He has power, but he's more of an outside. If I bounce to the outside, I'm going to beat you off my speed alone. I kind of wish they would have kept that, because Marshawn Lynch is definitely power horseback, whatever you want to call it, beast mode. He is that. He is straight power, diesel fuel power. Latavius Murray is also power, but he's faster than beast mode. I kind of wish they would have kept. I kind of wish they would have tried to keep that because they would have had a combo setup like Atlanta on the offense, and that would be wonders. Because then now you can if Marshawn Lynch gets tired, you put in Latavius Murray, he does damage, and he's not small. The dude's 6'2", almost 230. His doggone self. So I kind of wish they would have kept Latavius Murray.
Yeah, what about those 4 draft picks? Do you think any of them steps up?
The starting linebacker that got drafted first, he will be the most person to be counted on and stepped up, which I think he will.
Marquise Lee?
Yeah, Marquise Lee. I think he would be the linebacker to step up to the plate. He looks more ready to be out there on the field than the other 2 or the other 1, but like I said, my predictions can be wrong. It can be wrong. So
yeah,
but I'm going with Lee.
Yeah, and Chris, to TJ's point, without Latavius Murray, what do you think the odds are that Elijah Hood steps up?
They also got Tawan Jones as well, so I don't know which of those guys is going to start. They got Dwayne Washington from Texas Tech in the 2016 draft, so I'm not sure which of these other backup running backs is going to step up behind Marshawn Lynch. I feel like they're all 2 down backs, though, compared to Lynch, so it's going to be interesting to see how that situation plays out in Oakland. And as far as the draft picks go, before you mentioned Gareon Conley, I read an article from Silver and Black Pride on SB Nation that David Amerson's the number 1 corner. TJ Carey, who was the nickel guy last year, is projected to be the number 2 corner, and that Breon Borders, the undrafted kid out of Duke at cornerback, has jumped both Conley and Smith on the depth chart. I'm not sure if you got that, but that's one of the things I've read about and I've heard. But that may be due to Conley being on the PUP list right now. Conley could still end up winning that job, but Borders is really
it's like
impressive.
When you're not playing, you're not going to be on the depth chart. That's just the way it is. And also that's also the way the draft goes. We've seen many times where some of these undrafted free agents will come in and they will get starting jobs. They'll get corner jobs. There was a player for the Browns last year or the year before, and they've done a great job of finding undrafted free agents, mainly because they've sucked at the draft over the last 20 years. But they go out in free agency, they get these undrafted free agents who do contribute at the NFL level and then go on and play well at other places in the end.
And Borders was a great cornerback at Duke. He managed to fluster Deshaun Kaiser on a few plays in coverage, even though Kaiser avoided throwing any picks against that Duke defense. I mean, he actually did a good job isolating Equanimous St. Brown, Notre Dame's number 1 target last year, and I had a 4th-round grade on him, but he goes undrafted in the steep cornerback class, and the Raiders pick him up, and they actually got a pretty good gem in him.
Yeah, I thought he was a 5th-round pick, so I mean, that's definitely a great pick.
I mean, to get Borders as an undrafted free agent, absolutely. That's a great pickup, like we both stated. So you had a 5th-rounder on him. I had a 4th-rounder on him. He goes undrafted. You pick him up. Great signing. You get even more stability at corner. Now, with Obi Melifonwu, I don't think he's going to start because you've got Reggie Nelson and Carl Joseph under contract. What I think is going to happen is the Raiders are going to let Nelson play his deal out. It's got 1 year left, and then they're going to start Obi in 2018. They're going to let him develop and learn for a year under Nelson. And then Vanderdoes, I'm up in the air on him. And David Sharp could end up starting right away because, remember, Marshall Newhouse is the starting right tackle. I'm not comfortable with Marshall Newhouse as my right tackle. I'd honestly rather start Sharp across from Penn and see what he can do.
Well, David Sharp reminds me a lot of Andre Smith. They both came in out of shape. If you remember Andre Smith, when he was drafted, he was dubbed Mr. Man Boob. because his boobs had boobs. He was in terrible shape. And David Sharp kind of reminds me of that, a guy who can be a road grader, a guy who has the potential to be an all-pro, who could be one of the best right tackles in the league, but is out of shape, overweight. Thankfully he didn't take his shirt off while running the 40 like Smith did. I mean, that was a meme that will last the ages.
Yeah, one report I read said he's down to 313 pounds, but they still want to see him improve his footwork, even though he's added some muscle.
What, he's down to 313 from nearly 360?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you had to give him credit if that report's even close to being accurate. I mean, he could be off 15 pounds and it would still be an excellent report, because Sharp is one of those guys, because you can, if a lot of people, I'm going to give you through a little bit of a health, I want to go all health guru on you here. When you have that much weight, you put a lot of strain on your knees, on your back, and everything, but you also put a lot of strain on your muscles. So when you lose that weight, you're going to have more muscle on your legs, simply because your legs and all this are used to carrying this huge amount of muscle. So if you don't keep that up, that muscle is going to go away. So if he keeps training and he keeps that muscle, he's going to be faster. He's going to end up with the same type of strength. And not only that, but if he improves his footwork, that's when you're going to look at what this guy can really do for you. That's why you see when a lot of these guys drop a lot of weight, they still have the strength. At the same token, he's not going to have as much leverage, because obviously he's going to have 50 pounds of leverage gone. I mean, on top of that. So he's definitely going to have to look. So you're going to have to look at all areas, because he's going to lose some leverage and he's going to have that footwork to make up for the leverage. But the strength's going to remain if he continues to lift and nourish the strength as he was doing when he was bigger. So there are a few things to look at from Sharp's perspective on weight loss and how that's going to affect him. It's not necessarily saying he's going to be better, because there are a lot of factors that go into it, but it's saying that he can potentially maintain the same strength, and if he gets his footwork down, he can keep the leverage that he had when he was bigger. But he's going to have to get that footwork down to do it. Now, any final thoughts on the Oakland Raiders?
Yeah, Markel Lee, the linebacker you mentioned, he's in position to actually win a job. So he's actually in position to win that job, according to Oren Sheary, the Raiders person, who I know, and I know some Raiders people around there. There's lots of Raiders fans.
Yeah,
it's
during the draft,
fan base.
During the draft, he was pretty fun when he was drinking. So, I mean,
yeah, we had like 7 people on the call at that point, including Kerm, and it was literally like Naj Radio, that sports podcast. It had 7 people on at one time.
It was kind of a big party. I think between my drunken ramblings, Oren's drunken ramblings, you were just kind of crying in the background. So
I wasn't crying. I was entertained by how much was going on.
It was a party for there were about 4 minutes where it was just a big party. So
yeah,
I mean,
Ryan, Tracy, myself, Kerm, Oren. So yeah, it was a party.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the draft for you. I mean, that's kind of feel like the Browns felt after they were actually able to get their guy for once in the last 20 years. So PJ, do you have any final thoughts on the Raiders?
I have no thoughts on the Raiders whatsoever, besides if they can stay healthy and they can be able to improve what they was last year, they will be a championship contender type team. Please be on the lookout for the Oakland Raiders.
And so moving on to the New York Giants. Now, this is a team I thought they only had 6 draft picks. When it came to the first 3 picks, they nailed it. I mean, tight end Evan Ingram probably my favorite tight end in the draft. You know, he was picked number 23. Then you have Dalvin Tomlinson, a guy who I felt had top 15 talent, who was severely overlooked at Alabama, who goes and the Giants get him at number 23 in the second round, number 55 overall. And then probably my favorite quarterback in this draft, maybe second favorite quarterback. You know, he was right there, 1A, 1B type thing with Deshaun Kaiser. Davis Webb, round 3, pick 23, number 87 overall. So they got their defensive tackle of the future. They got a tight end that's going to step in immediately and help. And they get their quarterback of the future, all in 3 straight shots, all immensely talented. Chris, I mean, with those 3 guys sitting in there, and then you move to round 5, you see Avery Moss get drafted at defensive end. I mean, what do you think of what New York did to try to make not only a final run this year, but to address what they're going to need in the future?
I love what they did in free agency. I just wish they had been that proactive in the draft after the first 2 rounds. I mean, Davis Webb could be good, but at the same time, there are a lot more quarterbacks in this draft who probably have a higher ceiling than Davis Webb. And I know a Giants fan, Abby Sheck from Lombardi's Draft Talk, he was pointing out the Pro Football Focus chart, pointing out how inaccurate Davis Webb was. And Thomas was like, watch the tape. That's all that matters. And then he pointed out, oh, he only throws screen passes. He only throws short passes. And he was complaining about how they wasted this pick on Davis Webb. And I honestly think it's too early to say that, even though I think Webb's going to end up being a backup at best. But, I mean, it's too early to say. The jury's still out. This is probably the one situation where he stands to benefit the most. Because
okay, you want to look at Pro Football Focus. You want to look at the stats. Okay, let's look at the stats for Davis Webb. He outperformed in that last season. He outperformed Jared Goff's season the year before when he went number 1 overall. Is that saying that this quarterback class, as low as it was better than last year's? Because when one quarterback that played in the same system outperforms another quarterback with less weapons, and that other quarterback went number 1 overall, wouldn't you say first overall pick, third overall pick, what's going on here? You know, wouldn't you say if that was the case, Webb has a better arm, Webb has better accuracy,
Davis
Webb has a better head on his shoulder.
Texas Tech to California as a graduate student because he lost the quarterback job to Patrick Mahomes after Baker Mayfield transferred to Oklahoma. And
yeah, let's look at that. You know, Davis Webb had an intense battle with a guy who was drafted in the first round of this year's draft. This year's draft with Webb. So what do you say with that one? Because if Webb was so bad to go number in the 3rd round, what does that say about last year's quarterback class? That Davis Webb could outperform the number 1 pick taken in that class, be a number 3 draft pick, and people still be upset about it when he's outperforming the guy who went number 1 before.
I still think the jury's out there on Jared Goff. I actually think he could turn the corner under McVay, but if he doesn't, the Rams are going to have to replace him.
Yeah, but what does that say about those 2 classes that people are ticked off about Webb when they were cheering Goff, and Webb outperformed Goff with less weapons and less support?
Yeah, well, Goff went number 1 overall because he's a 3-year starter. Davis Webb was a 1-year starter who had
a 2-year starter. Because remember, Webb was
struggled in the game.
Yeah, remember, Webb was the freshman of the year at Texas Tech at quarterback. He is one of the people who have the dubious extinction distinction of having several trophies, winning several awards, including Freshman of the Year, and then coming back, and I think he won an award at Cal last year. So he won awards at two different colleges. So what does that say about Webb? Because everybody's saying, oh, he's this, oh, he's that. It's like he doesn't exactly have a terrible resume on his shoulders as being, So what about that situation? And because Webb's not exactly a slouch.
Yeah, I know when they did Game Changers, Warner said that he expected Mahomes to go higher than Webb, but he also thought that Webb would have like a better career behind the scenes, and even said that Webb reminded him a little bit of himself.
Yeah, and well, because I'm going to look at it here, and I want to say Webb has a great arm. He's got a great deep touch. He's got a quick release. He's got great mechanics. Okay? Mike Mayock said he's one of his five favorite quarterbacks. He's got 6'5", 229 pounds. He is big knock. He's got smallish hands. Okay? He's a great rhythm passer. He's a great pocket passer. He tends to be, as it says on FO.com, he's, pretty robotic with the decision making. I can agree with that because, he goes from Texas Tech to Cal, both spread offenses. He's still learning to make a lot of the reads. So I'll give him that. He has problems there. And when you're first starting to learn, you're going to be mechanical. You're going to be robotic. So, he's going to need coaching. No doubt about it. I said not a single quarterback in this class should start from day one. So I'm not going to look at any of that. But I need to see him perform later. Year. Not this offseason, though I'd love to see it, but in a year. I need to see him perform in 2 years. Remember, he is Eli Manning's heir apparent. And he's not going to start right away. Since he's Eli Manning's heir apparent, he's going to have time. And that makes a player like him dangerous. Because he's going to learn that system. He's going to learn it inside and out. And he's going to be an extremely dangerous player for them in the future, I do believe, especially throwing to Odell Beckham and that receiving core that they have with his live arm. Now, I'm going to go over to TJ, who's been waiting patiently while Chris and myself go over Davis Webb and feverishly punch through him. And I'm going to ask TJ, with all of this, I don't know how much you looked at the New York defense during the draft, because we all know that the Giants defense is the staple of their team. And what do you think the impact of Avery Moss and Dalvin Tomlinson from this draft will be on the Giants defense?
Hopefully, when you look at it and when you look at the Giants and pick and see the two that they pick up, hopefully they become shut down people where they can shut down plays, make playmaking where they can be playmakers while they're on the field. That's what you expect from them. That's what you want them to do. You want them to be able to make plays, but also be shut down people. And I figured that they can. But with the quarterback I was talking about, guessing his name is Webb, I believe.
Davis Webb out of
Davis
Cal.
Webb. he will learn the system. They're not gonna throw him. They're not gonna throw him in like Jared Goff. I'm pretty sure they won't. Eli Manning. Eli Manning would still be the starting quarterback, as we all know. But he will learn that system, thoroughbred in and out, left, right, what in whatever situation. He will learn that system. He will be ready, and when he will, the New York Giants finally when everything comes together, then will not be Odell Beckham Jr. in France, because the last couple of years it's been Odell Beckham Jr. in France. So I mean,
yeah, and I want to know, you have at wide receiver, you have Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, and Brandon Marshall. How big of a step do you expect Sterling Shepard to take this year, TJ?
Sterling Shepard, I don't feel like he needs to take a huge step, but a starting step to move forward would be a key. But it's one person and one person only that needs to be a lot better than what he was, and that is Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall is so much of a red zone elite wide receiver that last year was just so terrible to even watch him really play. A lot of drop passes. It cannot happen with this team. It cannot.
Yeah,
Odell
and
Beckham Jr. can do.
Chris, to TJ's point, Brandon Marshall last year had 59 receptions, almost 800 yards, 13 yards average, but he's 6'5", 232 pounds, and only had 3 touchdowns. He had those drop passes. He did not do what was needed. He had a long of 41. He looked like he lost a little bit of a step. As the number 3 receiver coming into the New York Giants, Chris, how do you think he does?
I think Brandon Marshall's going to be the number 2 target, and they're going to put Sterling Shepard in the slot. So,
well, last year Sterling Shepard had 65 receptions, almost 700 yards. Yeah, he only averaged 10.5 yards a reception, but he also had 8 touchdowns. His long was 32 yards. So, do you believe
Marshall as that number 2 guy across from Odell Beckham because he has more experience as a number 1 guy? I think that's going to have an influence on what the Giants do. But we could also see 2 receiver sets with Shepard on the outside. Then we could see 3 receiver sets with Shepard in the slot. We could see 2 tight end sets because there's some belief Rhett Ellison is more ready short term than Evan Ingram, but Ingram has way, way, way more upside. So we could see 2 tight end sets. And then the running back depth of the Giants. You've got Paul Perkins as your starter, Shane Vereen as your backup, and their 4th round pick, who we didn't even mention until the end of until now, Wayne Gallman out of Clemson, who Ryan Romero really liked on tape, even though I think he's a great backup in a perfect situation here with the Giants. So you've got a trio of running backs. Eli has more to work with than some elves in Santa's workshop, okay? He's got a lot of weapons he can work with.
Yeah, but I also want to point out the depth chart right now. I'm looking at it on NFL.com. You have Paul Perkins, number 1, Shane Vereen, number 2, some dude named Orleans Darkwa is number 3, Sean Drone, who I didn't even know was still in the league. I thought he retired 2 years ago, as the number 4 guy, and Wayne Gallman is number 5. In total, they have 6 running backs on their depth chart right now to start the preseason. And even for the preseason, 6 running backs is an awful lot of running backs.
Well, what I think we're going to see with the preseason games is they no longer have a rule where they have to cut the players each week. So they can go from 90 or 93 to however many men are on the roster, which Kerm was here to explain that, to 53 all at once. So they can cut guys down as things are progressing. So they don't have to cut all their guys at once. They can wait until the week where they have to reduce their roster from 90 to 53 and then start cutting players. So I feel like we're going to see a lot of teams play their backups and third stringers more so they can get a feel of who they want to filter out.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to get that as well, and I wish Kerm was here because he is great with the rules and stuff and how to break that stuff down. But I digress. I think we're going to see a lot of, with the Giants, I don't think we see Eli Manning more than 2 to 3 quarters this offseason. I don't even think they're going to play Josh Johnson very much. I think they're going to play Geno Smith and Davis Webb. I think they're going to play a lot of...
What they're going to do is similar to what the Cardinals did, because the Cardinals didn't play Carson Palmer or Drew Stanton in the Hall of Fame game because they knew those guys were both going to make the final roster. What they know is that Geno Smith's probably going to make the roster. Davis Webb's probably going to make the roster too, but they want to figure out where they want to place him on the depth chart. So I would say at this point, Geno Smith would play a quarter, Davis Webb would play the second quarter, and Josh Johnson would play the second half. So they can get a feel on whether or not Johnson's going to make the depth chart or whether they're going to have to cut him, because I believe he's 4th behind Davis Webb on the depth chart at the moment.
No, according to NFL.com, he is number 2. He is the number 2 guy. Geno Smith is number 3, and David Webb is number 4. Because
play a game.
Yeah, because remember, Josh Johnson has been the backup to Eli Manning for a few years now, so he knows what he's doing. So naturally, he's going to be the number 2 guy until somebody beats him out. So the other guys they brought in, they're trying to see what they can get for the future. Where Josh Johnson is present.
Really, and the best thing you can do is bring in Geno, who's by far consistency level is not even subpar at best. I don't know if I just hope that the first 2 doesn't go down, because if it comes down to Geno, they're not making the playoffs. Hell, and that's just honest opinion. They're not. Geno is very inconsistent, like very inconsistent.
Inconsistent, TJ. Inconsistent.
Inconsistent. I'm saying inconsistent. He's very inconsistent, and
you will learn grammar by the time you die. I will make sure of it.
Okay, but inconsistent by far. Yes, Geno Smith is very inconsistent, and it's not even funny. Like, I remember when he got drafted, and we was like, man, he's gonna be a real nice, decent quarterback if he can ever get consistency down. He's not accurate. He's on a lot of different throws, whether it's short, medium, long. It doesn't matter. He's not accurate, and it's just not a good look if those 2 go down and you have Geno Smith as your quarterback.
Yeah, and with Geno Smith, we're always going to remember the butt fumble. That's his claim to fame. That's his. Nobody's going to remember him as number 1 quarterback taken in the draft. They're always going to remember him for running into the ass of his offensive lineman and fumbling the football. The whole thing is, though, that being said, TJ, we're going to go to the 2 questions at hand. One for each of you. One for Chris, one for TJ. TJ, well, we're going to start with Chris since Chris has been through this already. We started it last week. Chris, what is the outlook for the New York Giants?
Well, I have the New York Giants at 11-5. I have them getting the number 2 seed in the NFC. And I have them winning their divisional round game and losing to Dallas in the NFC Championship, who we talked about on last week's episode. So I have a Cowboys-Giants NFC Championship game where the Giants sweep the Cowboys in the regular season, but Dak Prescott finally has his moment where he gets revenge on the Giants in the NFC title game in New York.
Yeah, and TJ, here we go. What is your outlook for the New York Giants?
The outlook for the New York Giants, if everything can go smooth, it ranges from where they can become 8-8 and 11-5. But I do have them being eliminated in the first round if they do play Green Bay.
All right, and that brings us back up to what started it today, the Oakland Raiders. Chris, what's the outlook for the Oakland Raiders?
I have them at 8-8. I have them getting the final wild card even at 8-8, and I have them losing to the Indianapolis Colts in the wild card game.
TJ, what is your outlook for the Oakland Raiders?
Outlook for the Oakland Raiders. See, they have a killer offense. They have a defense that's not bad, but not off track. So I'll give them somewhere between 10-6 and 12 or 14 if the season goes real great for them. And the biggest game for them will be the AFC Championship when they face the Patriots if they get that far.
So my outlook for these two teams, I'll start out with the New York Giants. We're looking at a team that has set itself up well for the future, has upgraded for the present well, and I think they could potentially end up improving on their 11 wins from last year. They could win 12 games. I look at them as a 10 to 12 win team going to the playoffs. They could do losing the wild card to make the Super Bowl. I think they're one of those teams that are going to have a great regular season. As we know, they've struggled a little bit in the regular season in the past, but excelled in the playoffs. Last year, they excelled in the regular season, struggled a little bit in the playoffs. So I think it's going to go back to the pattern that it was in. And for the Oakland Raiders, I'm going to look for them to – they're going to be an early playoff team. They're, early playoff team to just missing the playoffs. They didn't improve where they needed to improve. They improved their defensive backfield. I love the additions they made there. They improved their defensive line. I question their running back situation. I question what they did there, bringing in a guy who hasn't played for 2 years, releasing a guy that they couldn't run the ball at all without Latavius Murray last year. They tried to replace him. They failed to replace him. They brought him in. He played well. They lost both their right tackles. They're going to have to do something about that. If they upgrade the right tackle, we can upgrade this a little bit. But I see them as a borderline playoff team this year. And that is my outlook on them. Now, in additional news, we're going to throw in a little bit of news at the end here. It's been announced by the Cleveland Browns that Brock Osweiler will start their first preseason game Thursday. He has been named the starter. I don't know how many people actually looked at this and said,
I did actually.
Well,
a lot of people at work.
A lot of people didn't, because there was word that they're just eating his salary and they're going to cut him, and then there's like, okay, he's going to be the backup. Cody Kessler's going to start, and everything like that. So Osweiler, this would normally not be news, but Osweiler is getting $18 million from Cleveland, so that kind of propels it into news. in itself. So, in that respect, Chris, I'm going to ask you first, and I'll have TJ. What do you think of this move by Cleveland with Osweiler starting?
I don't think this is the right move, but since he's impressed the most and the Browns want to be passive and wait to play Kaiser, this is the necessary move. But I know Ryan Romero just went absolutely crazy over this when he heard the news that Osweiler was going to start, because he's a Broncos fan, and he knows how Osweiler, how brutal and erratic he can be from personal experience.
That is true. Hopefully, because there have been rumors that they may just use the veteran for the first 4 games, because Cleveland's first 4 games are absolutely brutal. And then put in the rookie to go from there. But TJ, what do you think about Osweiler being named the starter with his $18 million contract dangling in the balance?
Mayday. Mayday.
Oh, that does not fill me to the brim with confidence.
Mayday. Let's just I'm gonna just put it like this. The man was with the Broncos with Peyton freaking Manning. Enough freaking said. You have the greatest on the field coach. On the field coach. Quarterback who's ever played the game on the field. And you did not learn nothing from him. God help me. Him 18 million didn't deserve it in my eyes, but who am I to blame or to say that he does deserve 18 million? But Mayday, that's look, he can take a hit because he's 6'7" and he's big enough, but being with that Broncos team when Peyton Manning was gone and still wasn't able to really do anything, that's a bad sign. And you had one of the greatest quarterbacks on your team.
And with that, with that Mayday, I'm gonna say we're gonna wrap this thing up. We've got the New York Giants, the Oakland Raiders. So join us back at our normally scheduled time next week as we go over a lot of people's favorites to go to at least the AFC Championship game this year, perhaps even the Super Bowl, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the 10-5 Seattle Seahawks. So if you like this video, please like and share. For Chris Ransom, for TJ, Trumaine Jenkins, Joseph Potter, and for all of us at Draft Evolution, thank you and good night.